All right, we're live. American Leeds podcast. With me today is Jeer. Michael is joining me. Um, Jeer is the daily host of the Leeds United The View YouTube channel. He also has a great Twitter account, iJeerLynch. Follow him both places. It's an incredible place to just get your news, cut and dry, no frills, just the facts, ma'am. LUFC news daily. Um, any announcements on the channel, Jeer, as far as not about incomings and outgoings, but just how the channel's going
It's going
and
well.
what your hopes for it are in the future?
I didn't have any hopes for it at all. I launched it 4 years ago, and I was doing like opinion pieces on Leeds. Like I did thing on Bielsa's masterclass when he pulled out all the scouting documents on Spygate. That got a couple of thousand views, and then every other video after that got like 15, 16. So I went, nah, not for me. Stopped doing it, left it alone, and didn't touch it for 3 years. And then just decided about a month and a half ago, I'll do like a short Leeds video and see what happens. And that got like 1,000 views. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do a second one. And then that got like 2,000. I was like, all right, this is the thing and this is working. So we'll see how it goes. And in the space of a month, I reckon, it's nearly at 2,500 subscribers. And it's averaging between 3,500 to 5,000 views per video, which is crazy. But I'm gonna run out of content in a week. I'm gonna have nothing to talk about every day once the rumor mill stops. So yeah, it's going great. It's been a big surprise to me that's gone as well as it has. But still learning.
Hello.
Hey, Michael. You're on mute, Alex.
Hey, Michael, how are you? We're live, by the way. Just want to let you know. Oh, I muted you for you're good now.
All right. Hello.
Okay. We were just talking about Jeer's channel, Leeds United The View, and what he hopes for it in the future. I think there's a ton of potential. You built a heck of an audience, and I think you've got excellent opinions. You're going to be going. You're going to be doing something tomorrow night as an alternative. I'll be tuning in as an alternative to Sky. Those bastards.
I'm not sure to be on that level of excitement. You, by the way, you're both more than welcome to join me tomorrow night if you want to do it. I am very open to having company on this stream. I've got some topics I want to talk about tomorrow night. We're probably going to talk about them tonight anyway, but it'd be interesting to see what happens. I'm only doing it for the last hour, so 10 p.m. UK time. I'm going to go live until the window closes at 11 p.m.
Okay.
But would love to have company if you want to come along.
Okay. I'll see what I can do. I gotta ask permission to see what's going on tomorrow night.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, excellent. Michael, how are you doing?
Good. I just finished watching the Liverpool and Newcastle match.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I feel badly for Newcastle because they got absolutely ripped off at the end of that. I don't know if you guys saw it.
I saw the clip and I'm going, it says 5 minutes of extra time. We're at 97 or something.
Yeah.
Why can't Leeds get this kind of benefit here?
We didn't even get 3 minutes yesterday.
Yeah.
Mariner lost his whistle, I think. It was unbelievable. Yeah, we didn't even get the full allotment when we played. And here they are. I guess the minutes that we lost, or seconds that we lost, I guess it was, they found and decided to give them to Liverpool. So they ended up scoring with the last kick of the match. I can imagine, like, it kicked off a little bit on the touchline. It looks like they were
would do.
rightfully pissed off over on the Newcastle side of things. I think there was multiple points where the ref could have blown his whistle. I think after the 5 minutes, I didn't really see any reason for continuing it that much, like 2 minutes longer. Like it was.
I saw somebody said the ball never went out of play in the added on time. So how could there be any additional add on time?
Right, exactly. And there were points in time where the ball crossed the midway line. Like, I mean, it wasn't all just Liverpool hemming Newcastle in with chances. There were points in time where he could have blown the whistle and just chose not to. Like, it made no sense. Which, again, this is a Leeds channel, not a Liverpool or a Newcastle channel, but it does kind of lead me into something I wanted to talk about, which we can get to later. we can stick a pin in it.
Well,
But
yeah,
the timing and the standard of refereeing, 2 matches in a row, and I'm not saying that refereeing cost us any points in either of our last 2 matches, but it's been horrendous. The
VAR has been
refereeing has
horrendous
been
as well.
horrendous.
Even like VAR has been shockingly inconsistent. Like some of the stuff that's been given is no, that's not a penalty or not a free kick when it blatantly is, and then stuff that's not a penalty and we're benefactors of this as well because that offside yesterday was
razor thin. Yeah,
I'm still looking at going. I'm pretty sure he's onside. So, but it's not supposed to be inconsistent anymore. They're supposed to have made the stuff better this year, but it seems to be worse than it ever has been.
Yeah.
It's to be a top 6 side. I want to talk, obviously not the past 2 games that we didn't face the top 6 side, but that 2 minutes in Liverpool, wish we could have gotten it at least last night, especially with all the time wasting that you felt Everton was doing, and both sides that we just played seem to manage the game out with time, which is, I think, something that we're going to continue to see just based on how we play and how we try to get the ball off people. But
Liverpool bumped us at a top 5 as well, so we're 6th.
6th now.
Oh, we're 6th. Okay, all right.
Europa League, damn it.
Still top 6, but
Can we before we
go ahead.
Just talk about time wasting for a second, because I was going to say something online yesterday and I kind of said, no, don't, because the second I put that post up, we concede and we're going to look silly. So just hang on. But when the game finished, I went, how dreadful is that to watch as an Everton fan? Like, that was the most negative footballing performance.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team play a low block for 90 minutes and time waste. I had my notes wrote down. The 13th minute I wrote down on my notes, the time wasting is incredible. And that was 13 minutes into the game and they were parked. Now, fair enough, they score a goal because one of our centre halves is a lunatic. But outside of that, we were trying to give them chances. They didn't create anything. And if that's your season as an Everton fan, that's desperate. I would rather see attacking football and draw 1-1. Like we tried to win the game last night and drew 1-1. I'd rather watch that than watch my team park themselves on an 18-yard line against a team that, let's be realistic, just avoided relegation last year. What message does that send to your fan base? It was awful to watch.
Well, really, both teams did it. I thought Brighton did it as well. To a little bit of they didn't seem to really want, once they scored, they didn't seem to really want a second one. And I do like that about our team, is we always press hard for the second and the third goal. And I think we're doing it in a different way under Marsh than we did than Bielsa. Look, we got 24 hours to the window. I just wanted to begin with last night's drama and the timeline. Well, yeah, let's begin there. And Angus Kinnear's program notes. I did a video on it. I can go both ways with it, as I think, Gier, you said you could.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I don't want to put preconceived notions into your guys' head. What are your thoughts on Angus Kinnear's program notes and kind of the finances at the club?
Jared, you mentioned something, Jared, in the DM. So do you want to go ahead?
There's two parts to it. There's of the sheet of the program that was shared. And I remember Angus Kinnear saying to the Square Ball that, he sometimes has a bit of fun with the program notes because the audience isn't that big. But as the Square Ball made the point of, unless you put something in it that's worth screenshotting and putting on the internet. And I think last night, read the room is what I would say to Angus. He might not have a Twitter account, but you're damn sure the social media department in Leeds, he knows what's being said about Leeds. He's a smart guy. As Alex, as you said in your stuff yesterday or this morning, he's the PR guy for the company, because it is a company. So he needs to know what's being said. And the voices are not quiet right now around what Leeds need. And he alluded to that in his notes, literally word for word, saying about a striker being demanded by the fans. And he'd rather have the proper person in than a warm body. I agree with that statement. However, don't gaslight your fans. And I felt the first half of that page was him gaslighting the Leeds fan base. And I thought, if this goes bad against Everton tonight and we don't score and we lose, you are literally pouring petrol on a fire that's about to be ignited. And if you do no business in the last day, this will backfire way more than it did in January. And you will hear the fans chanting the board out way earlier than you did last season. The only part of it that I'm forgiven is the last piece that he wrote. In the very last 2 paragraphs of it is where he says, if the right player becomes available, we will absolutely go and get him. We have the money and we have to. And he said that in his interview last week. And Dave Ornstein made it. And this annoys me a little bit about some of the fan base. And David Ornstein says during the week on the Football Show podcast, Leeds have no money to buy any more players. 2 days after, Angus Kinnear went on Sky and said, we have the means and we have the will. That tells you we have the money. There's no issue. And Leeds fans went with Ornstein and not with Kinnear. Now, this is because Kinnear's broken promises in the past and he's not given himself any room to be trustworthy. But I wanted to believe what he said. The injury last night might get him off the hook. And I saw another person post today, Leeds have saved themselves from themselves, possibly. If the Rodrigo injury means he's going to go off and sign Gakpo. Because Hwang isn't going to excite anybody. I'm sorry. He's just for me, Hwang is a warm body. That is about it. I think if you're going to do this, if it's 20 million for Hwang and 25 million for Gakpo, you go after Gakpo.
Yeah.
But I thought his comments last night, if nothing else, were ill-advised, and he should have put the pen down and waited till next week.
Yeah.
Mike?
Well, it's. I mean, I agree with you completely on that. And he does have a habit of putting his foot in it, right? This is something that we've seen many times. It's almost like he can't help himself. Another thing that I find really interesting about what's happening right now is that we're seeing these Dan James rumors really gathering pace. But all of the rumors now seem to be saying, well, it's up to the player. We're open to it, but it's up to the player. And I find that really interesting because if you do sort of go along the route of actually Leeds don't have money and actually we will only bring someone in if we're able to move someone out for a lot of money, like the Jack Harrison rumors that came out previously, right around the time we were looking at Charlotte Kitalara. Mm-hmm. It's now basically the board has transferred blame if we don't get someone in onto Dan James's shoulders. That's the way I see that. And again, it's media talk. There's no knowing for sure that's the board that's behind it. But who else is getting the information out there? To me, it's certainly someone at the club. In my view, highly likely to be someone at the club leaking information about that they're open to the transfer, and it's up to the player. And if we don't get someone in, it's because we didn't move Dan James out. That is what they've set up to happen as the narrative in the fan base, and I think that's really unfair on the player. And I think again, gaslighting, right? That's exactly what it is. I think I'm really not impressed with the way the board has worked transfer windows, even though the start of this window was great in terms of bringing in some key players that we needed in key positions. It wasn't job done. We've said all along, a lot of us have said all along, and I know everyone here has said all along that there were still a few key pieces missing. If we need to wait to the end of the window to get them, that's fine. They need to come in. But the links, or the very serious links, have dried up, and then those few links that have come up are either uninspiring or are reliant on us moving someone else out, which was not what people wanted to see and not what we need right now. I do understand if we have to move Dan James out to bring someone in, but why move Dan James out to bring in Hwang, for example? And then to put it all on his shoulders, almost like setting it up to have him take the fall if it doesn't happen. I think that's incredibly unfair, and I do believe that's what's happened here.
Michael, I'd like your answer on this. It's up to the player, is it? Because it's not, is it? It's not.
Yeah, and in America, in American sports, Michael can attest to this, and they really don't have very many. Baseball, they have some rights, but if they get traded and they're under contract, the trades are much bigger here in North America. But Yeah,
It's the
I mean,
contract that's traded,
it's
right?
the contract. They're
Yeah.
under contract, and they don't really have any rights. They can say that they want to be moved, but that means nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's up to the organization. But go ahead.
If the club say, let's say Spurs are interested, and Leeds turn around to Spurs and go, yeah, we're open to having a conversation about Dan James. Then turning around to the media, and Mike, I think you're 100% correct. I think it is being leaked out of the club. I don't think it's an accident that it went away the other day and now it's come back full force since last night, especially.
Yeah.
And it really isn't the player's choice, because if the club say, well, we're open to selling you, you're sending the message to the player of you're not wanted. And if you are wanted, it's not really in a first team capacity. It's you're a fringe player. You'll get a couple of minutes off the bench, maybe, depending if the manager wants to use you. But you're not a must keep player, because we've just said we're open to listening to offers. You tell a player that, the player's first response is going to be, well, I'm not going to play, then I'm going to go. Like, you're forcing my hand here. I don't have a choice. And I hate to see it. And we've said it to death, and I know we have. Dan James gets a tougher time than he probably deserves. A lot of the stuff that he's had to deal with is not stuff that he has done. It's what has been done to him. Playing him as a striker wasn't his choice. He did it for the club, and he was right to, and I credit him for that. This is not his fault either. This is a fella being put in a very, very uncomfortable position and expected to be okay with it. I think it's a bizarre situation. I think I said it this morning in the news. I spoke about the 49er stuff, and I know, Michael, you've got more of an understanding of what the ins and outs of that deal are. But if it means we have to get rid of a player to bring in a player, Hwang is not an upgrade on Dan James. He's just not. And if it's a signing for the sake of a signing to keep the fan base happy, maybe 20% of them who are playing FIFA career mode and Football Manager will be like, yeah, this is great. We signed the player. But I want a player that's going to come in and actually make us better, not, and Hwang hasn't done it in the Premier League, well, out wide or up front. And for the amount of money that they would be getting for him, I don't see it. The only reason I see Dan James leaving is he doesn't fit Jesse Marsh's system, and that's a fair reason to sell the player. He's just not won't play in this system, and he doesn't look comfortable playing inside. But the rest of the stuff to put on his shoulders, I think, is incredibly unfair. And Michael, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think they're setting the player up for a fall here so that they don't have to take the backlash. But I'd like to think that we're a little bit smarter this year and that the fans will see through this when it happens.
Yeah. And look, I understand there's an argument to be made for a player like Hwang in terms of the profile, because as we know, Dan James, he's played at 9. He is not a 9. Hwang can play there and he can be a 9 just in terms of profile. So I understand some of the reasoning behind it that way, but in terms of quality, it's not an upgrade. So while you can maybe make the profile argument, why would we spend 17, 18 million pounds, whatever's been, and I've seen rumors up to 25 for a player that is just, in terms of quality, not an upgrade. Even if it is the right profile. I mean, like you said, that at that point it is a warm body, because it's not going to do, even if it is a round peg in a round hole, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right peg. It's just the right shape. Yeah. But it's not the right peg. It's not going to do the job that we need it to do. And so that's the way I feel about getting someone like Hwang is it's just not, it's not going to be enough of an upgrade for us to push the boat out for that, or to, change the squad around for it. So I don't know.
My problem is really in the program notes. Don't start high-fiving and saying that you had a great summer and all this stuff, and this whole managing expectations. All he really needed to say was, hey, we're pushing hard as we can to get the squad as best as we can for the manager, for Jesse Marsh, to succeed in this year's campaign. That's all he really kind of needed to say. We're pushing and we're trying and we're, and that we hope that it's if we do bring in somebody and it's a fit, that it's the right person. It's the right player. But the whole kind of managing, hey, we had the 2 international strikers, all this stuff. I mean, people are smart. That was my kind of like take. You're managing expectations. And to both of your points, the scary part, or the concerning part, I guess, is this whole idea of the leak. We know that agents leak things to specific outlets. If the club's doing that and the players can't trust it, and a player like Dan James is sitting there going, well, I'm trying. He's doing it. I mean, he's not producing as much as everyone liked. We all concede this, that again, and we take it with other context that he's out of position. And look, I mean, but he's doing the right things. He's bringing the right attitude. He's not a person where you're saying, God, he's a cancer and all this other stuff. So, it's just a shame. And when you're trying to recruit players and you see this is how they're treating, somebody potentially.
Your big signing from last season, this time last year, this was the big signing, wasn't it? And you're hanging them out to dry. Jason O'Keefe says it in the chat there, and it's a great point. This is exactly what they did with Adam Forshaw last year. Exactly the same. We don't need a midfielder. Adam Forshaw would be like a new signing. And you just said the exact same. You just kind of said the same thing again. Yeah. And the other side of this is, and I'm not going to be one of these, where's the money gone? I know exactly where the money is gone. The money we brought in has bought us the players that we have. And they have been excellent signings. There was, 5 on the pitch yesterday, and they all look upgrades on where we were last season. We look a better team than we did last year. And I'm part of the defense, but we'll get to that. It looks like a better team. But as Michael said, you're not done. You have a glaring, and calling your strikers proven international strikers. Pat Bamford's got 1 cap and he wasn't great. He missed an open goal that night. Hasn't been capped.
And you add what compounded all this was the shoulder injury to Rodrigo. Yeah. Now it's like the Twitter emergency button.
But it may have been a blessing in disguise though. Like that. Yeah. That's what forces them to sign somebody. And part of me thinks we're pulling a West Ham and Calvin Phillips here with Gakpo. Part of me thinks we're going in to say we're interested in the player, but we're not. We're really not. But we're going to make it look like we are, but we're not. Yeah. I was saying to Alex before we went live, somebody's been tweeting out chartered airlines, and a private jet took off from Leeds, from Doncaster heading to Eindhoven, that is due back in Leeds at 8:10 in the morning. Anyway, maybe, but I have remained positive for the entire window. And I have said we are doing good business the right way. I am happy with a sustainable Leeds club. And I said on my news stuff this morning, I have lived through Ken Bates. I have lived through GFH Capital, Massimo Cellino, Peter Ridsdale, goldfish in bowls that cost more than the players. I have lived through crazy stuff with Leeds. And this is the most stable we've been in 20 years. Yeah. I am not in a rush to see Radrizzani leave, but I am in a rush for him to maybe let go of the purse strings a little bit. And if he can't do it, let the 49ers do it. But if the article that came out this morning is to suggest anything, is that he's stopping the 49ers from actually investing any cash because of this. Well, you can only put in what I put in, and I haven't put in any transfer money, so you can't put in any transfer money. That is not helping Leeds, and he may be afraid of losing control of the club. But as has been said before, it's not your club. You're just a custodian of it right now, but it's not your club. It was here before you, and it'll be here long after you go. All of this could be redundant by 11 o'clock tomorrow night. If we sign Gakpo, a lot will be forgiven, very quickly. If we don't, it could be an interesting weekend.
That brings me to my next question or thought. Is there money at the club?
No.
Okay, you both say no. Okay.
I don't think so. I think I'm glad you brought up the Calvin Phillips analog there, Jared, because I think that's similar to what happened earlier with Charlotte de Ketelaere also. We did put in a bid and it was apparently accepted, but I think we knew all along that he wanted Milan and that our chances of that bid actually amounting to anything that we'd actually have to shell out was pretty slim right from the get-go. And I think that's why we saw rumors emerging of Harrison leaving and of other transfers out, because if on the off chance Milan fell through and CDK ended up coming our way, we would have had to make some moves out pretty quickly to fund it. I don't think the money was actually there. And I know a lot of the Twitter fan base that were out there saying, well, we had all this money already for Charlotte de Ketelara. I don't think we did. I think we had means of getting it, right, for that particular transfer if necessary, but it was always a slim chance of it ever happening.
It was shareholder investment was going to fund the Ketelar. That's what they had said. It was a big enough risk for Radrizzani to put a few quid in. 49ers to put a few quid in. There's another third party in there somewhere that has a couple of shares as well. They were going to put money in because they all said the Ketelar be worth double this in 4 years' time. So if we invest a small amount of money now, we will get that investment back doubled in 3 or 4 years when Leeds sell him on. Not if, when. And I think that's where that money was coming from. And that's why it's not available for every single player, because not every single player is going to have return on investment that the Ketelar would have.
I think sales were going to be part of that funding as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And again, I don't think Jack Harrison thing was an accident. And Jack Harrison got caught off guard himself and again, was made to look like the villain that was trying to force him to move to Newcastle. It's again, we sign Gakpo tomorrow. I think our opinions on the transfer window change, and whether there's money in the club or not will change. And he's done himself no harm tonight, scoring a hat-trick. He's probably worth another 20 million on top of that as well. Let's see what Anthony went for.
Radrizzani, to me, okay, so if there's no money there, if he's not willing to invest, because we know the net spend is $1 million or $2 million based on the math, then he's a gambler. To me, you went last year with Dan James, Junior Firpo, and the backup goalie, Clausen.
Clausen, yeah.
And didn't do anything in January, where it was like you had to do something in January. They gambled, thought health would come back around. And now here we are where you just came back over a relegation scrap and you're not going to invest. Getting relegated is, well, Leeds has experienced it. So you're really going to gamble it again, but maybe this is who he is. He's a gambler. And I think Leeds is not his ultimate goal. Being the owner and the chairman of Leeds United is not his ultimate goal. I think he's talked about in passing being an owner or partial owner, which sounds crazy, of one of the Milan clubs.
Yeah,
so I think he wants to sell.
He's an AC Milan fan, right?
He's a Milan fan. He
was involved in the sale of their club. He was involved with a company that was involved in. He owned a company that were selling Milan for Milan to the Asian consortium that bought them. And he made $1 billion out of selling that. Then he sold the company that he was using to sell Milan. It was complicated, but I think he made $1 billion out of that as well. But he's been trying to buy an Italian team for a while as well. There's no secret that he's been trying to get smaller clubs in Italy as well. He's desperate to get a club in Italy.
So I think he wants to sell Leeds high. I mean, and so bringing in the Americans, bringing in a new audience, if we're able to secure kind of mid-table position, obviously he's going to make more money if he were to sell it this coming summer than he would last summer.
Blocking 300 million at the moment, the club is valued at.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it going even bigger than that. So he's a businessman. He's here to make money. It's just disappointing. The narrative completely changes. I really hope that this is a lot of a smokescreen. I'm kind of trying to see the positive. I'm a little disappointed in the managing of the expectations, like we're, kids, and he's just trying to, say, nothing's available and stuff like this. But I think, again, I mentioned this in my video that Angus clearly works for Radrizzani. That is he is basically the spin, the control, the mouthpiece of what Radrizzani wants to do with the club. So interesting. Anything else? Do we want to touch on the transfers.
Just real quick,
go
just for
ahead.
Jason's comment in the chat there about the deadline window, that's not exactly correct. So the deadline in Holland to buy players is tonight, not to sell players. So they can sell players to any club that are inside an open, active transfer window. They just can't buy anybody past the 11 o'clock tonight at the 31st. It was the same when England's one was last year. The deadline was the start of the season. Other Spanish clubs still had 2 weeks after that to buy players and bought players from England. So it's not completely correct. We'd still have till 11 o'clock tomorrow night to buy him if we were going to buy him.
So if they wanted to replace Gakpo, knowing that he was going out, they would have to have that deal done.
I think they've already done it. They agreed a deal with Aston Villa for
El Ghazi. Yeah,
correct. There you go.
Yeah.
So I think his replacement is already in. That doesn't mean he's coming to us.
No, it just means he's probably heading for the exit
somewhere. Yeah.
Is there any
Barcelona jump in now?
Anything we want to talk about as far as transfers go? That have it's really quiet now. That's starting to bubble up a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody out there that either of you guys have heard about?
There was a few this morning. I'm trying to find my list this morning. A busy day. Where is it? Coventry City attacker called Victor. I can never pronounce this guy's name. Gyökeres or Gyökeres. He scored a load of goals. Championship in League One. Scored a screamer of a goal at the start of the season as well, and he popped up today. But again, that's from Dean Jones. Dean Jones has pretty much been wrong on everything he said so far this window. He works for Inside Football. Hwang was linked again. There was more talk about Pulisic. That apparently he wanted to go to Leeds or Newcastle on loan, and Chelsea said no. The new owner refused. He then offered to extend his contract at Chelsea to get the loan move, so at least he'd be flying fit for the World Cup. And they said no to that as well. He's got 2 years left on his contract, and I think he's on 150 grand a week. But Marsh had said that he wanted Pulisic if he was available, and Leeds apparently did inquire about a loan move for him, but they're not willing to let him go. Outside of that, it's gone deathly quiet. There's a guy I wrote down. Where did I write that? I wrote some stuff down a minute ago and I've come past it. There's a Leeds 365, right? I think I wrote down here. We should ignore everything they ever say about football. They just came out tonight with Serginho Dest, the fullback at Barcelona that Manchester United have been interested in the last couple of days. They've put up a thing going, Leeds to miss out on left back target Dest as he heads to. It's like, no, hang on. Leeds were never linked with Dest ever at any point. They keep putting out players that Leeds are missing out on, which is fueling this whole thing about we're missing out on players.
Because he's American.
Correct. We're not even linked with these players. None of these players have been linked with.
I saw a rumor about Dest like many months ago, and it was, I think it was maybe even before the window, potentially.
It was like,
and it was never a serious link. Yeah. It was never multiple report. It was just one of those, nonsense Twitter things. But yeah, like that's not a serious link.
No. And as an Irish fan, John Egan is not an upgrade on what we've got.
Yeah.
Let's move a little bit, and if anybody has any questions, fire away. This is American Leeds Podcast. My name is Alex. Tonight I'm with Michael, Canadian fan of Leeds United, Gier, Irish fan of Leeds United. Gier also hosts Leeds United The View for daily news about news notes and little nuggets about the Mighty Whites. You can look at Leeds United The View in the search of YouTube, and also follow Gier on Twitter, iGier Lynch. Michael is Maynard M handle, and aka Leeds Faithful. Let's talk a little bit about the games. Both probably a little disappointing, I would say. My whole take on the two games, I guess, if I were to boil it down, is Diego. A little bit of that, and a little bit of the chances that we give the opponents are kind of easy, if that makes any sense. Like the two goals that we conceded over the past two games were pretty open. There was nobody really covering the opposing player. And in the Brighton game, it wasn't a big switch ball, but there was they put somebody in and there was no one really around him. I mean, Pascal got drawn in. There was a missed assignment, and then the same thing. It was the same thing in Everton, where Gordon was in. Rasmus kind of looked like a chicken with his head cut off, and somebody said Diego nutmegged himself, and and it was in. It was so easy, and there's a couple of what I call hero saves a game by Ian Melier, and he just can't save them all, and we concede on both those chances. So, we're leaky at the back. The back four is concerning, and it's just those missed assignments where we're just 6s and 7s. I wish would get a little bit tighter, but what were your thoughts on the two games?
Well, I was more disappointed with yesterday's match against Everton than I was against losing down in Brighton. Possibly that's due to expectations. I'll fully admit that's due to my own expectations. I felt that we probably should have won yesterday, and that a draw was really not good enough, frankly, to be playing Everton at home, to have the amount of possession and sort of dominance that way that we did, and then to only, first of all, to go behind, and then really only to draw level with a low value strike. I mean, it was an excellent strike, but it is not a high percentage chance. I mean, we really didn't look like we created much by way of good chances yesterday. So that was pretty disappointing. I felt like we could have, and it wouldn't have flattered us had we salvaged a draw down in Brighton. But it's now been 10 hours and 54 minutes or something since the last time we scored down there. So that's not surprising that we lost to Brighton. I think down there, the Sinistera chance, that was the one down in Brighton. You just took it with the wrong foot, it seems to me. I think it was valued at like 0.99 XG. It's like 1 out of 100 you miss. And sure enough, we managed it. So, I mean, that was unfortunate, but again, expectations, right? You are gonna sometimes do that. Diego, though, like yesterday, that ball through to Gordon, it was harder to miss it. Or harder, how did he manage that? Like, it could have just hit him. If he took a swipe at it with his foot and missed it completely. If he had done nothing, it would have hit him. It would have been fine. So, I mean, I don't know, bad luck, being frantic. I don't know what the situation was there, but yeah, that was really unfortunate, because I didn't feel like it was, had it not hit, had he not missed it, I guess, when he was trying to hit it out. And then later on in the game, following up with that wicked miss kick that skewed off into Rosette along the sidelines. Like, he just wasn't with it yesterday. He kept missing things. And that's what you're going to get with him, right? Some very solid defending, and then the odd bomb scare, which ends up costing us. God, I really want a left back because, and I know that he's not a left back, but I really want a left back because I'd love to see Strauch like in the center of defense with Koch, please, and have Diego on the bench.
Yeah, he's out of form. I mean, when you're out of form, you should move to the bench, and unfortunately we have to play him. Jir, what were your thoughts? I also want to follow up with a little bit of question too, as far as, do you have to have a left-footed center back and a right-footed center back? Could you play two right-footed center backs? Or what's that? I mean, somebody said the other day that that's like a Marcelo thing that's been carried over. What are your thoughts, I guess, just on the games in general, but also the center back pairings?
Yeah, it's on the center back stuff. It's ideal to have a left footer on the left hand side, a right footer on the right hand side of your center back pairing, and then the same outside that, because of the way the ball is coming at you, you can attack it. And if you're facing your own goal, you're clearing away from the goal rather than using a foot to go across the goal. And it's trying to limit the amount of potential mistakes that can be made by the ball being on your wrong foot. The issue with that is Diego Llorente has 2 bad feet, and they get in each other's way. This isn't a surprise. I mean, if you go back to the first podcast that we did together, I think me and you were saying, Alex, out of everything that we need, I'd take a centre back right now. Like, I would take a centre back because when Llorente plays well, he can be very, very, very good. This season, all we have seen is the erratic version of Llorente. Since the start of the season, he has looked consistently the weak link at the back line. If it's a one-on-one situation, we are going to concede. It has been that way. He steps out when he shouldn't step out. And the problem with the left back position, and I agree with Michael, if we got a left back, we take Stroke out. Stroke's stats are showing that he has the most amount of tackles completed of any player in the Premier League so far this season. So facing it, his percentage is higher on winning tackles versus the ones he's faced. Yep. And he's in form. He's in good form. Llorente, I said at the start, when he's off form, he can be a liability. And right now he looks it. There was a moment in the game where the ball was on the far Leeds in the first half. Ball was in the far left-hand corner of the pitch. And Llorente had it on his own. There's nobody near him. And he went to turn inside and he fell over the ball. Like literally with nobody near him. He stepped on the ball and nearly made a mistake. And you're going, that was like 15, 16 minutes into the game with no pressure on him at all. And then when you look at it, there's just 2 mistakes for the goal, not to bury everything on top of Llorente. Christensen was marking Gordon. And as soon as Gordon played the ball and ran inside, Christensen stopped running. And he never tracked Gordon around. And if he tracked him around, Gordon doesn't score. So he didn't do his job. Ironically enough, I thought it was Christensen's best game after the first 25 minutes. Went past. I thought he was excellent after that. But that was a big mistake by him. But again, as Michael said, all Llorente has to do is stand up and hold his shape, and the ball hits him. Or when he is running back towards goal, put your foot on the ball. Just step on it. Just stand. Don't try and pass it. Just stop the ball because Gordon's running. So he's overrun the ball and you've got time. There was players around to help out. He took a position where I love to see the XG on that because when that ball is played, that's a defender's ball all day long. That should not end up with the ball in the back of the net. And again, I made notes yesterday because I knew we were talking about this and I wanted to have like stuff in chronological order. We dominated that game. We had 76% possession when that goal went in, which is crazy. I don't think we ever had that much possession when Bielsa was in charge of the team. It was crazy amount of possession. We looked like we were breaking them down. We were going to score at any minute. It was coming. And then Llorente makes a mistake. And I go back and look at several goals we've conceded this year. And Llorente coming out of position causes Stroke to have to step in and fill, which has caused this. And again at Brighton, ball to the back post, big diag across the pitch. Where's Stroke in the centre? Where's Llorente over by the fullback position, standing side by side with Robin Koch? You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to hold the middle of the goal. You should always have a defender covering the middle of the goal. Tyler Adams' job as a 6 is to drop in and fill that gap. And then you've still got a back 4. And for me, Stroke and this need for a left back is being highlighted by the fact that Diego Llorente cannot hold his shape and keeps getting dragged into positions that are causing us problems 2 or 3 passes down the line. And I never thought I'd say this. Both managers that we played this week, Lampard and Potter, I'm not a fan of either of the 2 of them. Both got their tactics spot on against Leeds in 2 different ways. Everton decided to play a low block for 90 minutes, but try and catch Leeds in the counter. And every time they played a long ball, it was in behind Llorente. Every single ball went in behind Llorente. That's not a coincidence. No. And you look at Graham
Potter.
Potter.
Think they were picking on him?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And Michael, you said this a couple of weeks ago. If you've got a weak link in the team, target it. And I think it's exactly what they did. Sorry, I was in the comment there. There's a throw me. Gakpo has no interest coming to Leeds. We don't even know that. It's possible, but it's not. You know, if his options are us or Southampton, we've got a chance. If it's anybody else, we don't. But if you look at, again, it's all the mistakes are from Llorente's positioning. And if he's not in that, I think if he's not in the team, those mistakes don't happen. And we're not maybe crying out for left back because Stroke is doing a decent enough job at left back. But he's a problem and he's a concern. And what I said to you guys yesterday in the group chat that we had was, yesterday felt like 2 different Leeds teams in the same team. It felt like if you put the 11 out on the pitch and drew a line down the middle, you had the attacking play and you had the defensive play. From an attacking perspective, we look good. I know we couldn't break them down and get in behind them, but I enjoyed watching that game yesterday. I thought we were really clean with the ball. I thought we moved it really well. I thought at times Harrison took too much out of the ball and ran down dead alleyways instead of moving the ball quicker inside. But in general, I thought that we would have broke them down. And then there was the defensive team who were all over the place, who just looked like they never played together, who were just causing gaps. Every time the ball played in behind them, it was like they were surprised the ball had ended up there, you know, and were turning around and sprinting back to try and get in their shape again. And they need to get that right, because if they can get the defensive side of this right, and I think Adams does a great job of breaking up the play, but I don't think he does a great job of screening the back four. And if he can get that part of his game right, and they can sort out, get Llorente out, and even put Cooper in or whoever else comes in, I think we're safer. But if we keep leaving ourselves isolated in 1v1s on counterattacks, and we have been saying this since pre-season, that we conceded against Brisbane Roar, Crystal Palace, and Aston Villa on counterattacks. And the counterattacks have been the problem. Our manager has said repeatedly, we have to be mindful of counterattacks. And yet we are getting caught time after time after time on counterattacks, like we're not working on this. And if it is just a case that it's Llorente that's causing us problems, then it's an easy fix to replace him when Cooper's back fit. But I don't think it is. I think they're being isolated too much. I would have taken a point out of the two games, if I'm being very honest, because all I was looking at was 8 points in the first month. That was it. And as long, whatever version of the results, as long as we get to 8 points, I'm happy enough. I think Everton, we'll beat them in Goodison, because I don't think they'll play like that in Goodison. I don't think the Everton fans will accept that in their own ground, that style of play. But I think a lot of teams will find it very hard to break them down. But I think if we play the attacking side of the game like we did yesterday and against Chelsea, I think we'll pick up enough points to be okay. The only concern that I have from an attacking perspective is we're lacking a Pablo-esque type figure.
Yep.
Someone who can unlock a defense when it is that tight. Sinistera showed glimpses of it, and when he's up to 100%, maybe that's there. That was a very clever goal. Like, it's not a high percentage goal, as Michael said, but it's a clever. He uses two players' bodies to screen himself and then just puts it in the near post.
Reminiscent of Rafinha's first goal, also against Everton.
Identical. Yeah, nearly identical. Look that way, put the ball that way. He's going to be a tidy player. But I wasn't too down after yesterday. I thought, look, at least it's a point. Last year we'd lost it. Last year we wouldn't have picked up the point there, and we are picking up points. We would have dropped them last year. So there is some positives there. A game like yesterday is where your manager earns his money. When it becomes a purely tactical battle and how you're going to unlock this low block, that's when your manager wins his money. And I thought we were okay. Defensive mistakes cost us, not the system.
It's interesting. I mean, I agree with you that I think Llorente is a problem. He's not the only problem. That you could almost draw a line between attack and defense, and sort of. I think some of the issue is a system thing, and maybe it's just that we need to fine tune some stuff. We're talking about Adams, for example, being more of a screen in front of the back four. I agree. That's probably something that needs to happen. Maybe that's just fine tuning how the system works. What I find is that with our counter press up high, and it's not the same as the Bielsa press where everyone's pressing, against another man at all times. We do wait for a trigger, but then when that trigger comes, it's that idea of throwing the net around the ball, right? So you have a whole bunch of players all collapsing around the ball all at once. If the other team gets through that, that's when we're left exposed, because we have too many players all around the ball in one area, usually centrally. If they can, that's why we're worried about switch balls, because if it comes out and goes out to a wing, we're caught. But it's not just those, it's through the middle as well, especially when you're running at someone like Llorente, who's not a great one-on-one defender. So that becomes the difficulty for me. And I think Marsh does need to make some sort of adjustment there. Obviously, throwing that net around the ball, doing that sort of ball-oriented press, that is fundamental to the system. That's why I'm saying it doesn't need to change, but it does need to be tweaked perhaps a little bit to provide a little bit more cover for those times where they do break out of it, because that will happen from time to time, and it will especially happen against the better teams, Chelsea notwithstanding.
Yeah, I agree on both counts, and it's interesting. It makes me, Jir, you've made me think that if Llorente was informed, if there was the two center backs, just becomes so important, because obviously the fullbacks are bombing back and forth, and then I think we've been fairly satisfied with the midfield pivot, and especially obviously in Chelsea when they were helping cover the wide areas, and that is going to continue to be, I think, the system. I think Marsh is going to be like, I know you're going to try to switch the ball out. I think we can recover. But the central play, as you said, if you beat the press, we've got our pants down. And and we'll see. I think he needs to fix that. I don't know what it's we got 24 hours till the window close. I mean, I would say sign a left back, but almost every Leeds fan has been saying that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But again, if this back line is able to solidify a little bit, now you really like Leeds' chances in the league, because I think even though we were out of form, we had some good opportunities last night, and you're kind of bullish on the ability of us to either score goals or manufacturing goals, which you need to score in the league. So, what are your thoughts on Brentford away, West London? Michael.
Yeah, Brentford away's become a pretty big fixture for us, and some pretty momentous things have happened there the last number of seasons that we've played away. People may recall in the season that we were promoted that we've been going through a rough patch, and it was actually a goal by Liam Cooper after a horrendous mistake by Kiko Casilla that drew us level at Brentford away, and really kicked on from there. We didn't lose again. So I guess until, was it later on, but we didn't lose again until the COVID break, from what I recall. We did quite well, and obviously ended up running away with it at the end. And that for me was a turning point in the season. And then of course last year, obviously the last game of the season, we're able to secure, our Premier League status by winning there. One of those players is still in the team, Jack Harrison, who scored the winning goal then. I think we probably have some pretty good feeling about playing down there. That's important. Some recent happy memories playing down in Brentford. I don't think that Brentford are quite as impressive this year, or will be quite as good this year as they were last season. I still don't necessarily believe in second season syndrome as a thing on its own, but I think they're more vulnerable, and I think that is a place, even though it's in London, I think that is a place where we can pick up points.
I would agree. And I mean, Brentford are only 2 points better off at this stage this season than we were at this stage last season. So they are finding it a lot tougher, which is always going to happen in the Premier League. It's, you'll get away with a year of new tactics and new shape and new styles coming into the league. After a year, they tend to figure it out. And we saw that with us. It took 12 months for people to figure out how to beat the press. And that was just let a centre half run out with the ball. And I think there's probably a couple of things with Jesse Marsh's system that we were talking about there a minute ago. I think it's just going to take them time to bed in. There's a lot of new players in there, and I think every game we can see there's more consistency. I thought we're excellent yesterday against Everton in terms of keeping the ball and doing the right things with it. Dreadful against Brighton because of how Brighton played, and they opened the game up. And I think this is a different Brentford team than we played last season. I mean, they have something to play for now, where last year they didn't. They're having a bit of a party down there. They'd survived the season, and we're in a mid-table position. I'm, to be honest, I probably didn't turn up for the game, but I'm glad that our record has changed against them, because we had a dreadful record against them in the Championship. The year before, we actually got promoted. The year we were trying to get promoted, I think we bottled it big time and went down to their old stadium. The new community stadium seems to be doing us a lot more favours. We've got a much better record there. But I think if Thomas Frank's not a bad coach either, I think he's a clever coach. And I think if they decide to do to us what Brighton did, if they play wide, if they're brave enough to widen the pitch as much as they can, they'll play through us like Brighton did, and they'll stop our press. If they're a little bit more conservative like Frank was, and they don't want to lose the game, then I think they could set up like a very much similar to what we saw last night, which I think we'll be okay against up there. I think it depends on us. I think it depends on how we play. If we can play the way we played for 60 minutes yesterday, and the game against Chelsea with that high intensity press, second half work rate in the first 15 minutes especially was excellent last night, trying to win the ball back really quickly. If we play like that, I think we'll do okay. I think we could get a win down there. But I think it depends on how we handle what they throw at us. Serge Canos has an awful record of scoring goals against us, and God, I hate that man. But I think that and blind headbutts to the back of the head for Alioski. Never forgive him for that. Never. But he's still a problem player for us. They saw him last year nipping into the back post to score, and
Yeah.
here we are, new season, a couple of months later on, and we're still vulnerable to that crossfield ball to the back post. So I think it depends on, do they decide to play their own game, which might help us, or do they decide to stop Leeds from playing Leeds game? I think that's, in the last 2 matches, Graham Potter decided to play his game and see if Leeds could play with him, and he won that battle. And Frank Lampard decided to stop Leeds from playing, and he won, and we got a draw there. So I think it will depend on what Frank does, but I think it is a beatable Brentford team this year. I think we're a better team than we were this time last year. Sorry, we played them last year.
Who do you fear on Brentford? Is there any particular player that we should look out for?
Tony's the obvious shout. He's got goals in his feet, I think Mwepu was due a goal against us as well after missing about 40 of them last year in the one game. So they've, and again, doesn't score a lot of goals, but Pontus from set pieces, there's still a big goal threat unfortunately from Pontus. They're not a bad side. They're a very well organized side. I think they don't have any, outside of Tony, they don't have any real standout individuals in their team, but they're a very good team of players, and they gel very well together, and they play a decent brand of football. They're a good side. Keep Tony quiet and stop. If Tony gets 1-on-1 with Llorente, we're in trouble. It could be a long day. If we can stop that, because Robin Koch at the back has been outstanding there. So it's just depends on who decides to line up against him.
Do you boys think Rodrigo's out for a good extended period of time, or do you think it's an upper body injury, which is good? It's not like Bamford, where it was kind of it's like a domino effect across his lower body with the heel and then the groin and then the hip, and this is a upper body injury.
2 months, they're saying, I think something like 2 months.
Really?
It depends on, so they got the shoulder back in. It depends if he damaged the labrum, which is the lining of the joint. That's your socket lining, is where the cartilage is. If they damaged that could keep him out for longer. And if he damaged any of the ligaments that are in there as well, if they got stretched or ripped. And then there's a little membrane on the top of the ball joint of your ball and socket in your shoulder. If they've damaged that, putting it back in or coming out, then that could cause them problems as well. And it could be a consistent thing from people that pop their shoulders out a couple of times, once, are vulnerable of popping it out again. Yeah. So if it's only just a pop out and back in and nothing's been damaged, you could be back next week. If it's any damage to the labrum, you're looking at probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, so let's say it's worst case scenario. Let's say he's out.
Buy a striker.
Buy one anyway.
Buy a striker.
Yeah, buy one anyway. And if it's going to be buying wine, just go and loan somebody then. That's the plan.
Because we can loan after the window closes as well. We can still loan players after the window closes.
Yeah.
That can be done.
Yep.
We can. Okay. All right.
Yeah, emergency loans.
Okay. Any faith in Bamford or Jaffe being able to go for 2 months?
So Bamford looked very keen when he came on against Everton. Rusty, of course, a little bit, but
people said it was the best moments of the game.
They were.
Yeah.
Well, it just showed how much we need that focal point. And even though Rodrigo has been scoring goals, obviously not in the last couple of matches, but even though he was scoring goals, he doesn't provide the same focal point. He doesn't have the same physical profile. He does have really good movement, but his movement is different from Bamford. Bamford's movement for me is elite. That's one of the best things about him, is his movement in the box. And also that he has sneaky speed. He doesn't have incredible acceleration, but once he gets up to top speed, he is fast, and it's deceptive. So, yeah, I think he was taking the ball down really well. I think he was holding it up really well. He was a little bit rusty in a few places. You could see that. But if he can stay fit, I don't think he's going to be ready for 90 minutes. He may not even be ready for a start. Maybe we can get him in for a half. But I think it'll do us a world of good to have someone like that there. Just talking about Jaffe, I love Jaffe. He's such a really exciting young talent, but he's not a 9. Like he's a 10 all day long for me. He's not going to be. He doesn't have hold up play. He doesn't do the things that we need a 9 to do in this system.
Confident player. That's what
Absolutely.
yeah.
But I don't think that's not his role. He's not a Bamford replacement. He's not a Rodrigo replacement even. More perhaps of a Rodrigo replacement than a Bamford replacement, but not if they're playing that particular striker role. He's more of a second striker for me. And so I don't think we can rely on him. And I mean, just look at what happened. I mean, you always hate to see a player get subbed on and subbed off again. I understand it, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with doing it. That really only happened because it was too early to bring Bamford on for Rodrigo at that point. That would have been the plan, probably, is to bring Bamford on for Rodrigo later on in the match if necessary. But it was too early, so I understand why that happened. I don't think that's any slight against Joffy. He did have a couple of really good chances, but he's not a 9. He doesn't have that profile for me. He plays a great game, but he does something else for the team. And I don't think, again, it's almost like a Dan James situation. It's almost unfair to him to force him to be like, almost a sole striker in that kind of a role when that's not his area of strength.
What about you, Jir? Is he not a 9? How do you feel about him? Is he more of a 10 for you?
I agree, Michael, 100%. He's a 10, or if you've got 2 strikers, he's your second striker. You've got your big man, little man.
Yeah.
He's the one that runs in behind. He's the guy that holds it up.
Yeah.
If you're playing a 2, you start Joffrey every week. If you're not playing a 2, I think you need a hold-up player, and that's just dependent on the system. If you're playing with a sole striker, your job is to hold the ball up to allow other players to get close to you and get involved.
Yeah.
Also takes pressure off your defense. If you're going through a spell where you're under pressure, an out ball to a number 9 that can hold the ball up just gives your backline a couple of seconds to get up the pitch and to take a bit of pressure off. The only thing I have a slight disagreement with Michael on, and it's not a huge disagreement, is that if we can bring Joffy on in this 16, 17 minute and then take him back off, and Bamford isn't good for 90 minutes, why not bring Bamford on, take him back off? Like, why not bring Bamford on at that moment, give him 10 minutes second half, and then bring Joffy on when the backline's getting tired? Yeah.
Just reverse the way that you do it.
Just reverse it. Yeah. I mean, if it's hold up play at that time that you need, you bring on Bamford, you let him do 30 minutes and you take him off. And then, no one's going to ask any questions about that because he's coming back from injury. I have no issue with Joffrey being brought on when he was brought on and taken back off. It's the amount of time that he's played, not when he came. Yeah. So
that's right.
That happens a lot with players that come on early in the first half because you need to change how you play. And I think Joffrey looks for balls in behind. Bamford looks for him coming short to feet, and they're a very different thing. What I did like about Bamford last night was as Michael said, his touch was very good, and I thought that's the one part of his game that might be off is, under pressure. He had some lovely little flicks and one-touch pass and movements on the sideline at one point. Does look rusty in front of the goal. I think Joffrey was desperate and looking at the score last night. He could have got 1 or 2. But I think if those chances had fallen to Bamford, I think he probably scores one of them, at least one of them. And it's not fair for Joffrey to put that kind of pressure on him either. I think Joffrey's still only 20 years of age. He's got a long career ahead of himself, and he's not as the right age to be in there in the limelight. I think we need a 9 because again, Rodrigo isn't a 9. He's a inside 10 or a
half 9,
false 9. Yeah, he's not a target man. He'll run the line. He get those little. He runs across the sideline and just ducks inside. But you saw against Brighton, he spent most of the game in Brighton out on the wing or in midfield trying to get involved in the game and getting the ball. And that doesn't help because, again, that out ball that the defense need isn't there. So I think they need to go and sign number 9. And I don't see a version of this where this pays off by gambling and not bringing in a number 9. But then the argument is Gakpo on number 9. He kind of runs behind as well. He's about pace, can play in a different area. And it's a tricky one. If you look at the age profile of the Leeds players that are here at the moment, and you look at what they're replacing people with slowly, I found out this week that Luke Ayling's contract is up at the end of the season, and they haven't offered a renewal just yet. You look at the age profile, it's starting to phase out those older players and bring in younger players, 22, 23 years of age are coming in. Gakpo fits that description quite well, but I don't know if he solves the number 9 problem necessarily. But yeah, I think if Bamford's out for 2 months, I don't trust Bamford to not get injured in the next 2 or 3 games. I think he'll still pick up something small. And I think you're left with Joffrey. And then back to that comment of He's not an established international. Calling it saying you've got 2 established international strikers is not true. Rodrigo is in and out of the Spanish squad. He's inconsistent, and Pat Bamford's had 1 cap. Joffrey's 20 years of age and should still be learning the game and not being putting the pressure on of being leading the line for Leeds to try and make us successful. So, I think they need to.
You said it about the hot games. I'm managing the MLS. You said making a rod for your own back. That's what Angus was doing, and then Rodrigo got injured. He made a rod for your own back.
Made it off your back,
and you should know. I hate to be harsh. You should know better as a PR man.
Oh God, yeah.
That don't print that. I'm not going to print that one because let's be real. That's not.
Yeah.
It's technically true, but it's not.
The second you put that on paper, you are leaving yourself open to looking very silly in about 24 to 48 hours time. That close time. I mean, he said it perfectly on Sky. We have the means and we have the will should the right player come up. That's all he had to say in his program. Though.
Yeah, and we're pushing. That's all we want to hear as fans. That's all I want to hear. I want you to be pushing for the club. That's I mean, what's going on behind closed doors? You don't have to tell me everything about the sausage that's being made. That's okay, but I want to know that you give a damn, and that you're pushing to get to make the squad as strong as possible before this window closes.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Go for it.
What did you both make of Radrizzani liking the tweet about Leeds being in for Gakpo?
His behavior's strange on Twitter. I mean, he said that Forshaw thing. He's sent out kits to, which I thought was also good, but also, he wants to be on social media. I'm referencing the LL Cool J kits and stuff. And this was at a time I think it was difficult to get a Leeds kit, and celebrities are getting them. So again, I went back on my Angus is an interesting guy. I think he's a company man, and I think he gets it wrong sometimes. Yeah. I even, and he survived. I date back to Gary Monk and Massimino. He was under Massimino Cellino, and the whole badge gate was under him. And to me, somebody took a hit for that. And it probably, sometimes it starts at the top. And he might, in other circumstances and organizations, they would have gotten rid of the top person. So I don't know. Go ahead, Michael. What do you think of Radrizzani's social media behavior?
Well, let's start. We'll start with the specific question that Jer asked, and maybe talk a little bit more generally afterwards. But so, in terms of liking the Gakpo tweets, unless this is a deal that's being done in the public eye, which sometimes they are, like sometimes it's well known, everyone's announced it, we're trying to work out a deal here. That happens, or the rumor has become so widespread that all the major media outlets are covering it. There's no secret anymore. We're not there yet with this, and so my view of it is that if in fact we are working on a deal for Gakpo and he's liking tweets about it, it's wholly inappropriate behavior from a chairman to be doing that. Like, I just don't think it's appropriate at all. Like, did he got too far into a bottle of wine? Like, possibly. I don't know what would possess him to do that in that way, unless it's already public. So that leaves me with the only other alternative, which is he's doing it and it's bullshit.
I'm leaning into that because
so that's kind of where I'm at too, because it just doesn't make sense. It's inappropriate to be doing it for any other reason. I
just keep writing it down. It's gaslighting. It's just
absolutely
it's the same thing. It's the same. It's like, oh look, we are interested in this player. You're trying too hard, which means you're probably not trying at all here. You're trying to make it look like you're 2 feet into this, and you're not.
It's like the reverse of Rodrigo de Paul liking stuff about coming to us and engaging with square ball guys. That was never going to happen. His agent was saying, "Yeah, let's engage with Leeds to drive the market to get you the move you want." Like, new club, big name. Let's go all in here and make a media frenzy. It was never going to happen.
I bought
ever.
that hook,
It was
line, and
just
sinker though.
nonsense, and that's all this is in reverse. Roger Design, I think, anyway.
I
Unless-
bought the Paul hook, line, and sinker. I was in.
Oh, so did I
What is
at the
flying?
time.
This
Yeah.
is we're
No,
back. And then
Yeah, no, I can only say that in hindsight, right? But I mean, afterward, when you sit back and think about it, it's obvious that was what was happening. We let our emotions get the better of us. I get that. I'm just as guilty of that as anyone. But when you sit back in the cold light of day, even just shortly afterwards, you kind of realize, okay, that was probably just nonsense, and it was just someone trying to get a move going, or trying to create, a stir. And I feel like this is that in reverse, where it's now the club doing it about a player, creating a stir for, I don't know what we tried. We're never going to do it, but we tried. Look, we tried. We wanted to. We tried. You can't blame us. It was up. It was it was up to the player.
It was the player. Yeah.
Yeah, not just our player, but not just that player, but also Dan James, who didn't leave.
So 2 players are fault for it. It's
right, not us.
Chilino used to ring Phil Hay when he was drunk.
Yeah.
And then GFH Capital, I believe they contacted the Square Ball because they were looking at players on Football Manager they thought were good, and they wanted to know if we should sign them. So we've had crazy owners who've done stupid things under the influence of alcohol. I highly inappropriate. I don't think that's the right term, but what I do think is it's super arrogant, is what it for me of. Either you have this done and you're waiting to kind of nearly get one up on your own fans by going, ha ha ha, I knew. Or you're not signing this player. And again, you're just gaslighting your fans, which why would you annoy a fan base that is that close to boiling over? We've had a great summer at the start, and now we've just ignored the one gap that we've needed. Well, 2 gaps. We've ignored them for the rest of the window. And you're going into the last 48 hours going, I'm going to start liking tweets about a player that we've been linked with that the fans clearly would like us to sign, that we're probably not going to sign. But, I let them see it. You're not appeasing your fan base by saying, oh, look, we were interested. We had a go. We tried to sign him. You're annoying your fan base. You're telling them, we're not stupid anymore. We don't buy all this stuff. Like you get away with that for a season or 2. You don't keep getting away with it. And because it's repetitive behavior, the pattern is easy to spot. We've seen it before. We've been bitten by it before. I thought it was an arrogant thing to do, probably under the influence of a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Zach's got a couple comments here. We talked about this at the beginning of the show, Zach, about Liverpool ridiculous. Yeah, the time was wish we had a couple. We were pressing for that winner as well at home, and the whistle came, let's just say, a little bit too early.
Yeah.
And of course, we're talking about Kinnear's comments, and we talked about earlier. We're finishing on because it's the elephant in the room. Just poorly written and just not the right thing to say. Just keep it simple. KISS theory, as one journalism teacher used to teach me. Just keep it simple. Keep it simple. You don't have to pontificate all these words, spin everything. I get you can say some of that behind closed doors, but people are smart. Let's not treat the fans like they're not. They're smart, and they're this is the most passionate fan base. Probably the most passionate fan base in the Prem. I mean, I'm biased, obviously. I'm a fan, but less is more. 100%, Zach. 100%. Nail on the head. Do you guys want to add anything else? I've got one more.
Does our view change at all if we end up getting Gakpo tomorrow?
Yeah, we all are starving for a statement signing. That's what this. I mean, you're teasing us. I'm dying. I've been on the edge of my seat here for 6 months or whatever. This window's been 4 months, and I feel, being a fan, as you feel, we're a big club.
Yeah,
and I think. Yes, technically. Okay, so there's no money there. Rad Rosani doesn't want to invest. Look, this is his asset, but I think he can stretch. I think the owner can stretch a little bit, 15, 20, 30. You're teasing me with CDK here. Is this all just spin? But go ahead, Jer.
Just real quick, popping up 2 minutes ago, Fabrizio Romano, and it's his actual page, not the parody page, to clarify that. Leeds are now leading the race to sign Cody Gakpo. PSV have still not accepted any bid from Southampton or Leeds, but Leeds are now pushing to get the deal done. Fight is still open, but Leeds are trying to tempt Gakpo despite Southampton proposal.
So that specifically then changed the view of Radrizzani tweeting, if in fact we end up landing him, because I still think it's inappropriate for him to be doing it at this point.
Yeah.
Just because it's not done. So I mean, it's teasing the fan base. Maybe they are able to get it done, but if we don't, it's a disaster. From his perspective, liking it and then not getting it done. It's certainly not fair to us. It's, as we talked about, gaslighting. Probably not a good idea to be sort of in a strange, indirect way acknowledging that there's some, transfer business going on in the background. Yeah, I still don't like it, but I suppose if we end up getting it done, then
I was saying the same thing. Like if we go back 2 weeks ago, we were probably really confident about what we've done in the window. We were pretty happy about the players that would come in. Tyler Adams had a great game last night. They're all individually in different games starting to look like players. Aronson gets another assist last night. Sinistera scores a lovely goal. You could argue that Sinistera should have 3 goals in 3 games if you include the miss against Brighton after scoring in the League Cup. They all look great. And 2 weeks ago, we're probably in a really happy place, saying we're just 2 players away from an absolutely perfect transfer window. But when you get to the last 48 hours and you haven't done it, and you start doing silly things like the program notes and silly things like liking tweets when it hasn't been done, it's never done till it's done. Never. Yeah, I saw that earlier on as well. But Fulham are looking at buying him, not loaning him, so that'll be an outright sale. Which again says the same thing, doesn't it? There isn't any money there to buy a player. It has to be a player out and a player in.
Yeah.
Which doesn't strengthen the squad anymore. But in saying all of that, if you sign Gakpo tomorrow, I think you change the narrative around the club. I think you make people a lot happier. And I think all of a sudden the transfer window looks 80% positive. You're still missing that 20% of a left back, but it's more positive. And a lot of what we've said tonight, as I said earlier on, could become redundant if that signing is done. I still think you're leaving yourself short in the wide areas then, unless I don't think Somerville's ready to replace anybody.
Yeah, I agree with Somerville.
So for Gakpo, though, he's primarily a left winger, a left-sided attacking player, and not a 9. But he can play 9. He can play centrally.
He plays 9 a lot. Our false 9 position, but he can finish, I suppose. But again, we said a couple of weeks ago, Dan James with a finish.
There you go.
Well, you'd love to see
taller.
that.
a lot taller. I think he's about 6'2", right?
Let's talk a little bit about, because I've got to jump off here in the next 5 to 10 or so. Let's talk a little bit about, and thank you everybody for joining, for the comments. This is the American Leeds podcast. With me tonight is Gier from Leeds United The View. If you don't know him, please subscribe to his channel. It is fantastic. It's daily Leeds United content. He's doing a live tomorrow night as well for the close of the window. If I'm PSV, because it's just popped in my head. I mean, I'm waiting until 12:59 or whatever, 11 or 10:59 p.m. on the transfer window to get the final bid. So this makes sense too. Fabrizio Romano would be saying that PSV is not, I would wait for the final bid if I am truly selling them and creating a bidding war and a frenzy. I also think that, I'm not in a hurry too, because I know that Leeds lost a striker last night. So I might even ask for more and see what they come up with.
There was a rumor that it was Gakpo and Hwang coming in and James going out, which would be better again, because then you're adding your warm body plus your main, a primary target to that. I would have loved Pulisic.
I would have too. I don't think it looks like Everton Chelsea are not moving him,
Not for
and
sale.
it's because of the branding. He's the they call him Captain America. Everybody knows him. He's the household name here in the States, and he sells a lot of jerseys, sells a lot of kits, and so I don't think he's even going to be loaned out because that value is just too important. He's going, and I'm sure Tuchel is saying, hey, he's going to be in the Champions League starting up here, and he's going to be in those games. He's going to score, and he's going to be in some cup games. Great. It's just disappointing. I think he'll be ready. A lot of this is my just 2-second take on that whole thing. I think he'll be ready for the World Cup. It's not ideal, and this is a completely different player on the other end of the spectrum with a lot of worn tread on his tire, but Gareth Bale, I mean, he basically lives for Wales. He doesn't, he's a load management player in LA right now, and he's not looking for minutes, but I think the World Cup is big enough to the point where I think that you don't have to if you're not getting up for the World Cup, I don't know what you need to do. This is a transformational tournament for these players' lives. I just wanted to talk about, this is good news coming from Fabrizio Romano here. And hopefully we get, we'll see. We've had a knack now for 11th hour deals. Boy, it would be good to see the LUFC official Twitter account come like he did, like when Rafinha came and you saw the airplane coming in, and he came off the private jet, and you were just like, we didn't, nobody knew who he was. He wasn't Rafinha kind of yet that he is for Barcelona. So, God, this would be great. So
it lots of other reasons as well. It's another Champions League caliber player coming in, another player with that experience, with a winning mentality, with a winning background. He's averaging a goal every 3 games for PSV as a winger, which is an incredible stat. I mean, if you're going to play him through the middle, he's even more dangerous. And again, he scored a hat-trick tonight, so it's an exciting signing. But I'm split in 2 different areas. I mean, if we don't sign him, huge opportunity lost, massive gamble, and will backfire in our faces. If you do sign him, fantastic transfer window. Well done. You missed out on one position, but outside of that, the team is stronger. So it's really polars.
Gentlemen, the month is turning. It's the 31st, and new month is ahead of us. We got to the coveted 8 points to stay up. Nothing's guaranteed, but it was overall, I think we could all say it was a good month. It was as we said, Michael and I over the summer, and Cheer on one-on-one conversations, it was a winnable month. Upcoming, we have Brentford this Saturday, Nottingham Forest hosting. That'll be an interesting game. Obviously, Forest is coming up for the first year. It made a lot. They lost tonight, right, gentlemen?
They got hammered.
They got hammered, right? City, not easy.
2 hat tricks in a row.
Yeah. He's an animal.
Yeah.
Holland is an absolute animal, and
he's got smash
records. Leeds-born Leeds fan, Erling Haaland.
The best striker in the world was born in Leeds.
Yeah. Yes. That's good. That's a good observation. Hopefully he'll come back to Leeds at some point.
He's 37
during his career. He's just, what a football brain. What did you say?
When he's 37 years of age, he'll come back. He'll come to Leeds for 6 months.
Unlike like Ronaldo, I don't know if his body could hold up, and the way he plays, as physical as he does, till 37. But I don't know. We'll see. We got the War of the Roses, September 18th. That is tasty at Old Trafford. Disappointing.
Don't concede 5.
What's that?
Don't concede 5.
Don't concede 5.
Just don't concede 5.
You almost wish we had it earlier. Yeah. But they look to be getting a little bit stronger.
Still very they're still very soft in the press though. A good press, and if the press is done well, Rashford will be the danger with that one though for counterattacks for speed.
You think Ronaldo gets moved, or is it just he's just too big, too heavy? too
I
much
think he's
weight on.
done anyway. I think even if he doesn't move, he's going to be on the bench for the rest of the season. I don't think Ten Hag likes his attitude.
What an end of his career. Interesting, sad, in a way. But I don't feel bad for him. He's just kind of he's a well, I don't want to say it, but you know what I'm biting my tongue on. So September, there are three matches.
I don't want to say it without retaining legal counsel first.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Alex, this is where you need
There's
to
a
come
reason why he couldn't come to the States for a long time. Let's just say that.
You need to have a bar across the bottom of the screen that says all comments made in this channel are the comments of the individual and not the channel. Then you can say what you want.
I didn't say anything.
No, you didn't. I'm low on battery too, so this thing might just crash. But 3 games. What are we thinking? I think obviously hosting Forest at Brentford are definitely areas we can pick up points, and then at Scum at Old Trafford. How are we feeling about these games?
I think we can win down in Brentford. They're not better than us this season. The results have been similar to ours recently. I mean, I think they drew with Everton. Did they draw with Forest? I think so. So they're not great. We're not great, but I think we're better than they are. Forest is an interesting one. I think we can certainly pick up something there. I don't anticipate that we'll win away at Old Trafford. It happens so rarely. I don't think that we will, but I expect us to do better than we have done there the last couple of seasons. So 6 points for us, I think, probably.
I'm tempted to say the same. I'm very tempted. Looking at it, I think Brentford Forest, I don't think we'll get anything at United. But at the same time, I've scribbled down in front of me 5 points. A point away to Brentford, 3 points at home to Forest, and a point away to United. Is, I think, 5-6 points in that 3-game month is a good return and puts us in a really strong position going into October after the break.
Be very happy with that.
I'm gonna say 5 points, and I'm gonna say two draws against the teams that we should beat, Brentford and Forest. Something about and there's something, I don't know if there's something about this team, but I think that we are going to get up for the big games.
Yeah,
I think there's just a moxie, the Tyler Adams, I don't know if it's Aronson or the Sinistera kind of swag about them, but I think we can do damage and get results. There's something about that Chelsea game where it was like under Bielsa, we would get results on the top 6, and it was like, we belong here. We could, there's a feeling of like, Leeds can compete. With Chelsea, it was like Leeds can win.
Yeah.
Even though we got Man City trying to be, and Tottenham, we got wins over them. It was still a feeling of, we can compete, and we kind of we nicked City a little bit, even though we were down to 10 men. And Tottenham was so poor. It was off. Jose left. It was a kind of a transitional thing. The rest of them were draws. But the way we handled Chelsea, and I know Chelsea obviously are out of form, lost again against Southampton.
Yeah, they're poor.
It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm wishful thinking, but it just feels like Leeds this season and the mentality, we're gonna have disappointing results, as I think we've had. Mm-hmm. But we can win. We can win, and we can get results against anybody. I feel that more so than I even did the first season under Bielsa. So I got to go. The battery's dying on me. I got my wife texted me, and she's home. So gentlemen, fingers crossed for the final hours of the window. Hopefully we get something. I'll be paying attention to Twitter. Follow Gier Lynch, Leeds United The View. He's going to be going live tomorrow night. DMs are open. Michael, Gier, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please like. I don't do this enough. Please like, comment, subscribe, etc. You control the algorithm. The algorithm does not control you. And Zach, appreciate you too, brother. Anything else? Please reach out to us. And marching on together. Leeds. Talk to you both soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you, folks.